Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. Release the protector saboteur to rebuild authentic safety. Friends, it's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me. And today we're going to talk about that inner sentinel, that a part of us, for many of us, is a saboteur in the sense that it tries to protect us when maybe we don't need to be protected anymore, or maybe the rules have changed because we've grown. But yet that saboteur shows up as protection. And so we want to build real safety in the inside. Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about today are from client stories, mixing up all the different factors, because it's not any one person. Because what I notice is it's in everybody on some level or another. I know I have personally dealt with some of these things where that inner part of me that kind of rises up to protect me from something, conscious or unconscious, actually sabotages what's happening in the current moment. And then we wonder sometimes, what is happening here, right? And that's that inner sentinel. Now, if you didn't listen to the show about the guardian child, you probably want to listen to that too, because this kind of goes with it. Because if you were a guardian child and you developed hypervigilance and you developed all the skills to be able to determine what was going on and take care of the family and take care of things and guard things, you often become this person who's like the sentinel. They're the ones who announce what's going on, tell the world what's happening. They stand at the door with a scroll for the king, right? Well, the sentinel is that saboteur part that's trying to protect you, when most often, in current day, you don't need protection in the same way. There are lots of ways this shows up, and I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about how do we get to a place where we can finally relax and decompress and feel safe. And the answer is not talking. The answer is not in talking about it. In fact, all the gifted people I've worked with, myself included, we're over reinforced for talking. So we figure if we just keep talking and processing and writing and talking and processing and writing, we'll clear it all. Well, that's not the case. The case is that there's an energetic component here. There is DNA changes if it's been going on in your family for generations. There's things to pay attention to that words alone will not take care of. After all, our words are only about maybe 20 or 30% of our overall communication. There's eye contact and breathing and how the reciprocity of energy goes in different relationships. And so there's way more going on outside of the cognitive, linear, word-related realm. And so we want to realize that sentinel, that is the protector, is a saboteur if it's protecting you from something that you don't need to be protected from anymore. And a personal example is that when I was younger in high school and before, there was a lot of chaos and violence around me within the family and around. And I'm very intuitive and very sensitive. And so it was very difficult for a long time for me to totally relax and feel safe. Not only safe in the world existentially, because I was gifted and felt like I was an alien a lot, but also safe in the sense that I didn't know when I was going to get yelled at or sniped at or harmed in some way verbally. And that affected how I respond to things. So as I got into college and started moving along in life, it took some work, actually a lot of work, to begin to be able to settle down and realize that my adult self is safe. That yes, the child and the teenager had a lot of chaotic and unsafe feeling things happening. That's true. And she doesn't need to guard the adult life anymore. So it takes a lot of love and kindness to kind of melt that ice away. Some people want to talk about fighting and pushing and beating it up and killing that part. Well, I don't see it that way because, first of all, I don't want to kill a part of me, and I don't want my clients to kill a part of them. But the other part here is that I don't think that's useful. I think what's more useful is loving and melting away the part that has frozen, that's frozen in time, in that space of, I have to protect at all costs. And gratefully, we had that skill when we needed it. And right, maybe now in life, you don't need it. But if you ever needed it again in the future, guess what? Your inner being remembers and can take care of you. So you can rest in that safety. There are lots of things that this kind of saboteur can do to you. They make a second guess. You know, I have clients all the time like, did I do the right thing? Did I say the right thing? What's going on? In my 20s, I had a lot of that issue where I was second guessing everything. And I even almost made a B on a test one time because I kept second guessing the answer so much. And I already knew the answer. But there was that compelling urge to get it right and second guess, constantly double checking everything. And then there's the catastrophizing. I call it playing dead on the highway syndrome, right? Where everything is a big deal. It's all or none. I remember years ago, I was working with somebody and he was really, really cool and gifted. And his big thing is if he got triggered with the pain from his younger life, he would immediately think he was going to be kicked out of wherever he was living and be homeless on the street. Now, he'd never been homeless on the street and he never had been kicked out. But that's what that protector saboteur was telling him. And so we had to work on the fact that you can have situations, you can solve problems, you can deal with conflict as an adult. And it doesn't mean you're going to lose everything and be on the street all by yourself. It takes work to not catastrophize things if you have been somebody who had to protect themselves in that way. And then now it's sabotaging you. One of the big things that I notice that it's happened for clients of mine, and it's happened to me at times in my life too, is it blocks momentum. When we have that quiet kind of protector saboteur, sometimes not always quiet though, but that comes in and like throws up the wall, right? Then that part of us blocks whatever momentum we have. So a lot of the business people that I work with and a lot of the athletes that I work with and a lot of the scientists that I work with have some of these issues because they can be on the brink of something amazing and beautiful and great. And next thing you know, the protector rises up and just thwarts everything from the inside out. And often on the outside, the people don't really see it, but on the inside, the person is suffering because that protector just sabotaged something really amazing and something great, a breakthrough in a science thing or doing something amazing athletically or making a milestone in your business. You know, I tell entrepreneurs all the time, our business can't outgrow our own health. So if you have a protector saboteur who's in there running you amok every time you get momentum going, first of all, it's tiring. And second of all, it is part of that old part of you that's trying to be heard and validated and understood and actually trying to protect you. Now, the odd thing is, or I guess funny kind of, is that we don't need protecting anymore. But yet there's that part of us, it's kind of on a loop that continues to protect when it's not needed. So the best way to handle that is to, first of all, honor that part of us and to say, yep, there he is, there she is, living in there, doing their job, hypervigilantly protecting, telling us everything that could possibly go wrong. And to, as you would a small child, love that part of you and reassure that part of you that now you're an adult and the rules are different now. So it's a yes and. Now, it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of work. It takes focus and effort. And it's not a one-time thing where we say it once and we're done for the weekend. There's different levels. There's different parts of us that really need that extra kind of invitation and love to come into the whole. And to then, as an adult, when that feeling comes up, to put it in its place and not allow it to do the sabotage. So many factors and so many things happen. And I have a client that I was just working with recently and he was going, but it happened so fast. And so maybe the beginning is just noticing how fast it happens and finding any little choice point to kind of put some space in there. Maybe there's other ways to help create and build that safety. Now, a lot of times it's nonverbal work like drawing with your left hand or silly dancing, I call it, or ecstatic dance, where you're just really moving your body and letting all the stuck energy get out of you and move. Sometimes it's massage. Sometimes it's floating in a salt tank, those where there's just no stimulus and the system can finally settle. There's all kinds of ways to, in a nonverbal manner, free that energy that's stuck in you so that it doesn't become that protector saboteur and getting in the way of your authentic happiness. Now, we also want to understand that this part of us, this saboteur part of us, has had a lot of reinforcement over the years, right? This part of us often gets a lot of reinforcement because it has been a good protector, but its job is over. So there's grief in that, right? And that part of you might want to hold on a little longer than you might want it to as an adult, a current adult. And so it takes some inner negotiation, if you will, that yes, thank you so much for serving me. Thank you so much. And it's time that you move on. It's time that we energetically and otherwise move on. And I guarantee you, if we need you again, protector, saboteur, then we'll call on you. But in the meantime, let's lay low and allow yourself to be integrated into the whole in a loving, kind way. Because that saboteur will get in your way. Will get in the way of relationships, in the way of your work, in the way of your health. And so, though I can talk about it in this kind, nice way, it doesn't feel good. I have told people before in my own personal life what that saboteur feels like to me is like somebody coming up from behind me and taking a dark, wet blanket, those heavy wool wet blankets that's wet and dark, and putting it over my head and then ripping me back. Now, nobody around me can see that happen, but I can tell you that that pain is exquisite and it's beyond words when it happened. And so it took a lot of love and care and kindness and honesty for me to say, whoa, this is really hard. It felt like something outside of me, but yet it started outside, right? It started outside of me with the violence and chaos from the big people when I was little. And it got integrated into the system. And then the guardian had to start protecting. And then that protection became sabotage. And it followed that path. So the way we take care of it is we, first of all, say, yes, that's the truth. That's what happens. And then to start loving that part of us and saying, I love you and thank you for your work. Thank you for being here. And I don't need you anymore. Like give it a pink slip, write it a resignation letter, do something to let that part move on. Now, for me, I do some really cool meditations and I write those things and I draw with my non-dominant hand and I allow all of my sensory self to release the sabotage part. Now, I believe all of us have some part of us that are saboteurs in different kinds of ways, simply because we live in this world, in this society, and we're influenced in so many ways, and there's intergenerational things happening. So just think about you. When has your momentum been stopped? When have you been not understood in a way that felt differently painful, right? How has old programming, old tapes in your head gotten in the way by telling old stories to yourself? Well, you used to be like this, or this is like that, or, you're whatever it is, and it's not true anymore, right? How does that old program really get in your way, right? I have a client right now who says, well, I don't have a college degrees like you do, Diane. And so, I can't be as successful as you. Well, that's not true, but that's their program. Out here, when I look at the person, I don't see that. I don't feel like it's true. But their old program is holding them back in their world and in their life and in their happiness. Because somewhere, somehow, they got the message that without a degree of a certain kind, that they could never be fully happy and successful. So we have to go in and reprogram those old programs. And some of them hold on and they're sticky and they're kind of tight to work with. And some of them let go right away the moment you shine the light of truth on them. That's where the willingness to do the work pays off. That's where you'll see an entrepreneur or somebody really excel in their work, because they are able to see the situation be honest about it, and then say, okay, we're making a shift. And we're making the shift by loving into ourselves that part of us. We want to recognize that the saboteur's voice is different than our own. Just like our intuition comes to us in a voice different than our own, the saboteur's voice is a little different. The saboteur will say stuff to you like, not yet. You're too old to do that. You're too short. You're too fat. You're too ugly. Or what do you have that idea for? You're not smart enough. Oh, be careful. You're not ready. Got to get ready. All of those things that have that sense of like urgency and that breaks on them are the saboteur's voice trying to stop you. Because that saboteur really is that old part of you that needs love and care and needs to be told its job is done. It's that old part of you that is trying to tell you that you need to stop. It's the brakes. And so we want to not have the brakes hit as hard. So when we notice those voices, that's when we stop and we kind of have like a little dialogue. Say, well, I know, saboteur, you want me to stop. And at the same time, I hear you, I love you, and I'm still going forward. So we can honor that part of us and we can love that part of us and we can still move forward. So what we're doing here really is we're building our safety from the inside out. We're learning how to realize that our safety, our psychological and emotional safety lives within us. Yes, it is impacted by the outside world. And yes, when you're intensely sensitive and gifted and you're neurodivergent, you take in the world differently than maybe some other people. All this is true. And the solution remains very similar. We go within and we begin to understand that our safety happens from the inside out, that we can, in fact, take care of ourselves, and we do not need protection in the same way the saboteur does it by stopping us. We can have clarity. We can be sensitive to what's going on. We can have more of an authentic voice. You know, I can tell when my saboteur is trying to talk to me because my voice gets tight. And when it's my intuitive, flow, calm, adult self, my voice is not all tight in the back. So you'll be able to feel in your body when the saboteur is coming and trying to get in the way and trying to have a voice and trying to be heard, because the saboteur doesn't want to die. So that's why I say, instead of killing the saboteur, love the saboteur, bring him or her into your heart and have boundaries and rules around it, right? Like, you can live here, but you don't get to run the show. You can ride on the bus, but you're not driving anymore, because when you drive the bus, we drive off cliffs. It's not any fun. So you sit in the back and watch some videos or something, and we'll go on from here, because we want our intuition and our leadership from that level to thrive. And it can't do it consistently when the saboteur is telling us what to do, is telling us to stop or slow down or don't do it or get in the way or keep us up at night, or creating an experience like I described I used to have that stops us dead in our tracks. You know, one of my books a few books ago, I think I just published the 9th or 10th book, a few books ago, that similar thing happened. I was doing really well and I was writing the book and I was almost done and everything was great. And then all of a sudden that feeling of that blanket I told you about showed back up. And it took me quite a while to dig out of that hole. At the time, I didn't realize what exactly was happening. I hadn't been able to put it together. I just knew it was a thing. And so with a lot of work on myself and a lot of consulting with different kinds of practitioners on things, I have finally seen how it is. And so the funny thing is, I've been teaching people how to do that a long time. And in me, it was so tricky, I couldn't see it. Now, I always tell people you can't read a label from inside the jar. I learned that in Genius Network. And I think it's true, because I know I've experienced it. I can't read my own label because I'm inside the jar. You can't read your own label because you're inside the jar. Okay. So we want to have a narrative and a way of living that allows the protector saboteur to take a break, to rest, to move out, to die, whatever way you want to look at it. But that person, that part of you, no longer has a voice as you heal and you work through it. Now, every once in a while, that part will try to show up again. And then we have to work through different levels of these kinds of things. I've been working on this stuff for a long time. So it's like all these different things. I have this family I'm working with, and the husband and the wife and the child who is a teenager all have this protector saboteur differently because of their youth. So the mom had a protector saboteur. The dad was a guardian child with a really strong protector saboteur, and the child was learning these protection mechanisms, even though the parents were working very hard on changing family patterns and teaching themselves and their child a different way to live. And they've done a great job. And there's layers and extra things to think about and things to deal with. So when we create the new narrative, when we create the new way, it's so important that we remember that all that we have experienced comes together to work together for the good, that we can claim our adult sovereignty, we can claim our authenticity, and we can stand in our agency of who we are without an grieved child trying to protect and sabotage the adult. We can do that. All of us can do that. We have all been sabotaged by different parts of us. So let's be honest with ourselves and say, okay, where has different kinds of sabotage? Where has that protector part of me gotten in my way? Has it held you back in business? Has it held you back in relationships? Has it held you back in school? Has it held you back in daily life? Has it been that part of you that said, oh, you'll never get it done, so you don't even try, whatever it is, right? So always remember that whenever there's that voice in you that feels a little tight, that is saying you can't do it, or you're too old, or you're too this, or something like that, that voice is old news. That voice is something old that is still trying to run the show. It's like you trying to put on your baby shoes. You don't beat them up. You just know that you don't fit in them anymore, and you buy shoes that fit you today. So we want to remember that whenever we're in safety, that our internal landscape is in flow and feels compassion and kindness. That sabotage, all forms of it, especially from the protector, begins to dissolve and dissipate and fall away the more safe and the more integrated and the more grounded we are. And there's multiples of ways to take care of increasing inner safety and letting that sabotage protector self just kind of disappear, like fall away. And most of those ways are nonverbal. They have to do with art and movement and music and dance. They have to do with realizing that through meditation, things can work really, really well. So I hope this episode has been helpful for you. And until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. And remember that protector saboteur is old news. That person, that part of you, can dissolve away with your permission and your focused work. Until the next episode, be well. Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episodes, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.